A portion of today's video is sponsored by Skillshare. I've spent 30 days now with the new Arctis Nova Pro wireless that adds a new frame and active noise canceling and improved audio over the previous model. It's also $349, making it the most expensive wireless gaming headset on the market at the time of this video. We're going to go deep today and compare it to the other flagship wireless headsets out there, and we'll look at it versus the wired version at $249, just in case you were leaning that way. For compatibility, there is both a PlayStation and an Xbox version. They both work with PC too, of course, but I would just get the Xbox version. It works with PS5 and with PC, and there's no color coding in the branding or the design. And it should be obvious, but the advantage of wireless is that it's wireless. I don't typically recommend a gaming headset over a wired audio headphone for gaming, except in specific use cases, and wireless is one of those. I do want to start with the physical redesign because I love the look of these. They don't scream gamer. You could definitely wear these out in public without any weird looks. This black and gunmetal colorway is super clean. They are releasing extra packs with new speaker plates and headbands if you want to switch it up, but I really like the stock look here. They've finally moved on from the fixed headband design into something a little more familiar and a lot more accessible for people with larger heads, like this guy. The Arctis Pros just barely fit me. These are a lot more forgiving. They have about an inch of extension on either side. The outer headband is steel. The hinges and slides seem to be plastic, but they feel pretty solid. I imagine they put some focus on the strength of the hinges this time around. Overall, these feel very good in hand. The cups do swivel 90 degrees, pads down. They have a tendency to hit me right in the Adam's apple. They're not choking me out, but they're not really comfortable, and I probably wouldn't wear them like this. They do still have like the internal ski band strap from before, but they've got 2 points of adjustment this time around, kind of like a snapback hat. I do wear the elastic on the higher adjustment, but I don't wear these anywhere close to the maximum adjustment, and sadly, that's pretty rare for me. The new design has more clamping force on the sides than before, and they weren't comfortable for me right away. They have broken in now. Took about a week, and here are your large head dude rankings. I would still rank them as mid-tier in terms of comfort, the first two being very close. The Nova and the H3 Pro tied, with the Virtuoso being the least accessible for larger heads, and the Penrose having a pretty unforgiving amount of clamping force. So we have a couple things in the Nova that are a direct result of them adding active noise canceling in here. One are the faux leather ear pads. You need this material when you're doing noise canceling because you have to create a seal up against the head for the ANC to do its job. I know not everyone was a big fan of the sport mesh from previous designs, but I really prefer it to these. Like the H9, they just don't breathe very well, and they do get toasty pretty fast. You can't just snap these on and off pretty easy, so they're not glued, and that's a big plus. So hopefully we see some aftermarket pads at some point. I would definitely trade active noise canceling performance in exchange for more breathable ear pads on these. The padding on the wireless is more dense than the wired version. I find the wired version more comfortable. The other thing with noise canceling is this little nub that houses the microphone necessary to balance the ANC. Now personally, I don't feel this. I probably wouldn't have even noticed this unless I was feeling around on the driver. Your mileage may vary, but I can forcibly push this ear cup into my skull as hard as I can, and I still don't feel that bump in there. As far as performance goes, it's effective, but it is a little on the higher pressure side, which can bother some people. And even though there are levels to adjust the amount of outside volume you hear with like the ambient mode or the transparent mode, there are no levels to adjust the strength of the ANC. If you've never experienced what I'm talking about, then don't worry about it. But if you're sensitive to that, you know exactly what I'm talking about. These are on the higher scale, but they're still doable. The pressure on the Barracuda is too much for me. The Sony H9 I think does it best, but I'm never wearing those outside my house, and the H3 Pro ANC performance is pretty forgettable. In terms of features, we have just about everything you'd expect on a flagship. We've got chat mix drivers, so you can assign Discord or a music app to your secondary driver. That allows you to balance that audio with your game audio. You can access this on the volume wheel with a click in before you rotate. You can also long press the volume wheel to access all the menu options on the base station, which is presented in a big, really legible layout that you can make out from the sofa to your TV stand. Unlike on the Sony H9, where the secondary driver was at the same level of quality as the primary driver, the secondary driver here operates with a very obvious reduction in quality, so I would only use that for chat and not music. We also have Bluetooth sound mixing, so you can't have a Bluetooth connection at the same time as your 2.4. So again, you can have Discord via your mobile while you play on console, or chat on the phone, or listen to music while you grind or aim train. You can set whether or not Bluetooth mode is active when you power up, and you can decide how the system treats your game audio when a call comes in. It can either do nothing, or reduce the volume of your game, or completely mute your game. This feature used to be a real standout thing, but it's become increasingly more common in other flagship wireless headsets, even in some of SteelSeries' own lower tier offerings. The big notes here is that the Astro A50 has no Bluetooth at all. Barracuda Pro doesn't have simultaneous Bluetooth. It's either one or the other. And the Penrose does have Bluetooth mixing, but it has some of the worst on-head controls of the mix. I have a full video review of that if you want to know more detail. The other big standout feature here for the Arctis is the base station. This has been redesigned as well. Looks very good. Screen looks very good. Knob feels very good. It adds some connectivity you won't find anywhere else either. You have two USB-C inputs on the back, so if you're somebody that has your console at your desk for streaming, you can flip back and forth between console and PC without unplugging and moving your dongle. I mean, you can still move your dongle around if you want to. It's your body. Now, you can't use both these USB-C inputs at the same time, but you can use either USB-C input and your line in at the same time. This has been updated from the previous version as well. This plays very nice with the GoXLR. It also has a line out as well, which I don't think is available on any other wireless headset system, including the Astro A50. There's a lot you can do with this output, including controlling the submix out, which is wild. But the cool thing here is that this allows you to use this mic on your wireless headset as your mic in on your GoXLR, in case you enjoy using a GoXLR for its mixing capabilities, but you're not currently using an XLR mic. I'll follow this up with a quick separate video specifically about this headset and GoXLR, because there's a lot to unpack there, including some specifics about what it will and won't do. And I have seen videos in the past about the previous Arctis Wireless Pro where people had noise when they were using a 3.5mm input with that. To solve that, all you need is this $10 or $12 ground loop isolator from Amazon. Knocks that right out. The big important note here is that the optical input from the previous gen has been deleted on this version, just in case you're still on an older console. The other major thing this does, like the V1, is that you have an extra battery in here charging at all times. When the battery in the headset gets low, you just pop it out and replace it with a fresh one that you had in the base station, and then put the old one in there to start charging. It's like a perpetual battery system. If you do happen to be traveling and you're just using this as like a noise-canceling Bluetooth headphone and you're away from the base station, there is an option to charge on this thing directly with USB-C, but it's behind one of the plates on the side of the ear cup. It is kind of a clumsy place for it, but it's so seldom used that I don't really think it's a factor. This is flat out the best wireless battery system on the market, and this headset alongside the V1 are the only two wireless headsets I've ever had where charging was simply never an issue. So battery, flexibility of ins and outs, source handling, the Nova sweeps this easy versus competitors. All right, let's talk about this mic. As far as where it stacks up, in its absolute stock mode, it has the loudest levels of the bunch by far. I had to reduce it -6 dB to get a test that didn't sound too hot, but it does have some background noise, like some hiss and some crackle. I don't mean background noise in terms of things you can hear inside the room. I mean background noise like you can actually hear the wireless connection. Running it stock like this without the Sonar software, I think it gets beat easily by the H3 Pro and the Virtuoso. In terms of background noise cancellation, you can definitely still hear me typing on this keyboard when I'm talking, and when I'm quiet, you can still hear it there as well. But when you bring in the Sonar software, this changes things considerably. We have a variety of different EQ modes you can pick from here that sound really good to me tonally. This is like low pitch broadcast. I think this sounds really good. This is similar to like the Blue Voice software if you've ever used Logitech stuff before. But there's also some background noise cancellation going on here called Clearcast AI. It says it's early access, but it sounds really good to me. This is similar to like NVIDIA's RTX Voice. So if I'm typing on this keyboard at the same time that I'm talking, it's going to have a hard time kind of getting that out of there. But if I stop talking and the gate kicks in, that's a drastic reduction in noise right there. This sounds really good to me. So even using Sonar, you still can't hear kind of some transmission artifacting going on right there versus something that sounds a little cleaner like this H3 Pro. This doesn't quite have the tonality that it does when you're using Sonar, and the Clearcast AI for background noise reduction is phenomenal. Even hearing some of that transmission stuff in the background, I think I would still go that way over this, though this is a really high quality mic. It is important to note right now that Sonar is only available on the PC. I did reach out to Steelseries, and they do have plans for future firmwares to let you use that on the console side, but it's not there yet. This is a retractable design like on previous models, but even more discreet this time around. Sits really flush to the frame, looks like it's part of the design. You wouldn't even know it was there if you weren't looking for it. They do include a windscreen for this in the box, but that interferes with tucking it back into the frame, so that will probably stay in the box for most people. When I first saw this design, I was pretty excited to think that maybe you could just leave this mic retracted and take a call if you were out and about, because this is a very portable device, right? It looks the part, it's got Bluetooth, it's closed back, it's got active noise cancellation, much like any other active noise canceling headphone out there. But after taking a call on this, the person on the other end of the phone informed me that this was a definite no-go. The irony here is that that's exactly what the Barracuda Pro is supposed to do. This doesn't have a boom mic at all. It just has these beamform mics in here. So you're supposed to be able to get great audio while you're sitting at your desk or playing on your console or being out in the world. But as you can hear, they didn't exactly hit the mark on that. At least with the SteelSeries, if I'm out and about and I want to take a call, I can just pull that thing out and have a conversation. Unfortunately, that looks some type of way, so the pull-out game is probably not for public display. I just simply wouldn't take calls on it if I were out. I did want to break out the Penrose just so you can hear this for comparison, because the price on this is $299. It's right up there with the Astro A50, and as you can hear, I don't really think we're hearing $299 worth of mic performance on this thing. You might wonder where the Astro A50 is from both the mic and the sound comparisons, and I'll tell you, I've had two Astro A50s before, and I've wound up gifting both of them away because they've had intermittent connection issues with my console and with my PC. They crackle, they go out, they have to be restarted. The mic was always kind of mid, and the sound was always kind of mid, and I've always just kind of felt that Astro was more about marketing than it actually was about a quality product. I didn't want to do Razer too dirty on this today because it's not really fair that everything else has a boom mic and theirs does not, even though that's the decision they made on their flagship. But when you hear something like their Black Shark V2, this is like $140. It doesn't have all the bells and whistles that the other ones do, but it has much better mic performance, and if anything, it just really illustrates what a misstep they made by not having at least an optional boom mic available on the Barracuda. All right, now we've got the Sony H9 that we looked at a couple videos back. This whole thing reviews very well for me, with the exception of the mic, which was the obvious low point there. I think that's emphasized even more hearing it against some of the other competition today. I would put this thing probably still above the Penrose, but even below the Black Shark V2. And I would put the Penrose above the Barracuda if for no other reason than that the Barracuda completely lacks a boom mic. Unsurprisingly, when you move to the wired Nova Pro, you get even better mic performance. That's not a shocker because it's a wired connection versus a wireless connection. You're hearing the stock right now. And now you're hearing the wired version with sonar with that same low pitch broadcast EQ. The only thing I notice about this at all is that I didn't have to reduce the levels nearly as much. The levels, for whatever reason, on the wireless are just really high. This one I have dimed out on the control itself, and then in the sonar software I have it bumped down like -1.5 so it doesn't get too hot or it doesn't clip. Nonetheless, I think this is probably going to sound really good. Getting into sound quality, you heard me say in the H9 video that I thought the Sony was a bit more musical and the Arctis a bit more technical. And what I meant by that was that the Sony H9 is very pleasing the first time you put it on. To me, it's tuned much more like a consumer headphone, not like a gaming headset. The Arctis is immediately tuned like a gaming headset, but with an insane level of detail and separation in the highs and mid-highs. That's where usually all your cues live, your footsteps, your gunshots, that sort of thing. It's not to say that the bass is not there. It definitely is. It's just that the whole presentation kind of skews more towards the detail in the high end. It also sounded immediately better to me than the outgoing Arctis Pro wireless. I used that headset for 4 years. I know that sound very well. This has more detail and a more well-rounded, more balanced sound. I had no problem picking up direction, verticality, even in a game like COD with its muddy mess in the mids where the footsteps live was no issue. If a headset is lacking proper tuning for an engine like COD, you can hear footsteps, sure, but you have a really hard time picking out your own footsteps from your enemy, especially if you're sprinting through the map. The default tune on the H3 Pro, for example, was bad about making my own sounds much louder. Like my gunshots were deafening, my footsteps were loud, the announcer was really loud for some reason, all my enemies sounded really far away. That might be more realistic in some aspects, but it doesn't help gameplay. The Penrose still edges for me in terms of pure audio quality, despite falling short in like numerous other areas. The Arctis is really close though, and the H9 right behind it. If you run without the sonar software, you get a 24-bit driver versus a 16-bit driver with the sonar. That's pretty common anytime you have a driver that supports surround sound. If you're shooting for the purest audio experience and foregoing some of Sonar's arguably pretty excellent features, you can go that way, but over wireless, it's honestly pretty close. No shot I'd be able to pick out the difference between the drivers in a blind test. I had no dropouts or connection issues of any kind either, and there's no background hiss or background noise on this thing at all. It is a really clean background. On the topic of that sonar software, they have EQ modes in here that are game specific, and they're actually really useful. They did a great job with these. Worth mentioning too that I believe Sonar as a software is compatible with any other wireless or wired headset out there. The simulated surround is more the same for me. I'm just not a big fan of what this does in competitive gaming. I love it for big open world games or single player games. It's nice to add some depth because the soundstage isn't terribly wide on these. Nonetheless, I can't imagine anybody being disappointed with the audio quality of these. And if you've ever had a wireless headset that just didn't give you enough volume, even at the max, you do not have to worry about that here. There is plenty of overhead here for PC, console, and Bluetooth. If you are looking at the wired version, all the same commentary holds true. The primary difference being that you really can hear the difference using the 24-bit mode. Even without, you get deeper bass extension and a touch more clarity in the mid. mids. Highs were surprisingly similar between the two for me. In terms of value, I was happy to see the Nova do so well in each of the individual categories, given the price. I was a huge fan of the previous version. As expected, this set still wins in feature set, I/O flexibility, battery life, and the software support through Sonar is very good. The mic for me is great with Sonar. Even without, it's still top 3. The sound quality is greatly improved for me over the outgoing model. Nonetheless, with a price point this high, I wouldn't immediately recommend upgrading over your existing Arctis Pro wireless if you're still enjoying that, unless there's just something here you were waiting for in terms of ins and outs. So the conclusion is not going to be a big surprise. The Arctis Nova Pro wireless represents the most complete audio package on the market right now. I know how people get when I say best, so I'm not going to trigger anyone today, but there's a lot of performance here and a lot of flexibility and not a lot of compromises. But man, that price. Of the flagship models we looked at today, if you're not willing or able to go to $349, the Sony H9 does almost everything well and it sounds amazing, but that mic is no bueno. The Epos H3Pro Hybrid at $279 is a good move, and you're not really sacrificing anything, but you will have to tweak the EQ big time for certain games. Virtuoso RGB XT is a strong contender, but only for small to medium heads. The Penrose sounds amazing, but poor mic, poor comfort, poor on-head controls, and the Barracuda is a pass for me for build, sound, and mic quality. It's important to remember too that we were talking strictly flagships in today's video. There are ways to get decent wireless performance out there for a lot less without all the bells and whistles. I'll probably do a roundup video for some of my favorite options for that as we get closer to fall. But if you do have the pockets for it, the Arctis Nova is the move, and it doesn't hurt that it's a damn good looking headset. Every so often I get asked how I get product shots like this or how I learned to shoot products or edit video. I had no experience with photography or video prior to starting the channel, and being self-taught is cool because you have a tendency to carve out your own style faster, but you can miss important fundamentals along the way, and that's why I'm such a big fan of Skillshare. Skillshare is an online community with thousands of inspiring classes for people that want to learn new skills, up-level your skills in an existing role, or just explore something creative for yourself. I'm at a place where I'm pretty confident with Premiere Pro, but I'm always looking for little extra touches for my videos like motion text or composite graphics, so I've been learning After Effects. Jordy Vanderput has an awesome beginner's course. It's all broken down into short sections, it's really easy to follow, and it builds on itself as you go. For me, this works a lot better than looking all over the internet for random tutorials. The production value is super high, and there's an active community behind each class where I can ask questions or I can see if anyone ran into a similar challenge while going through the course. I always know the quality is there, it's always ad-free, so I don't have to worry about interruptions, and the entire catalog is now available with subtitles in Spanish, French, Portuguese, and German. Plus, they launch new premium classes every week, so there's always something new, and there's classes for every skill level, so it doesn't feel intimidating if you're new to whatever you're pursuing. Partnering with Skillshare is always an easy dub for me because they've added so much value to my creative life over the years. The first 1,000 of you to click the link down in the description will get a free 1-month trial to Skillshare so you can see what it's all about and start exploring and improving your creativity. Big thanks to Skillshare for continuing to support the channel, and thank you so much for your time. I know that was a lot of info today really fast, so if you have any specific questions, just hit me in the comments. I do my best to answer everything I can for at least the first couple days after a video comes out. Next up is either the Sony monitor or the Wooting mod guide. Haven't decided yet. That's it for today, and I will catch you all in the next one. Stay up.